We are willing to walk away from a draining romantic relationship in a flash, armed with self-help books and therapy sessions. But when it comes to the friendships that truly hollow us out, we freeze. Why is the boundary so high for a lover, and yet completely non-existent for a friend? We've all felt that exhaustion, that sudden, inexplicable drop in energy after hanging up the phone with someone we deeply care about, and then we immediately dismiss it, telling ourselves, oh, they just had a hard day. But what if that hard day is every day? And what if your role has transitioned from friend to emotional battery charger? We must challenge the greatest psychological myth in the relational world, that long history inherently equates to emotional safety. I want you to stop thinking of your relationships as simply good or bad and start viewing them as an energy ecosystem, specifically as a friendship battery. Toxicity isn't always a dramatic explosion or a confrontation. Often, it's a slow, quiet leak. And this is the insidious, silent drain that you didn't notice. The toxic friends aren't actively hitting the battery. They're subtly plugged into your charging port, drawing power while you focus on your own life. And you wake up feeling depleted without ever knowing why. This is the definition of silent toxicity, the slow emotional depletion that you rationalize away until you realize you have nothing left to give. This is where modern psychology illuminates our deepest cognitive blind spots. We are fundamentally programmed to prioritize loyalty above all else, especially when that friend has been in our lives for a decade, 2 decades. We fall victim to what behavioral scientists call the sunk cost fallacy of friendship. We tell ourselves, I've invested so much time, shared so many memories, and gone through so much with them. I can't quit now. But think about that truth for a second. You are allowing the history of the past to steal the peace of your future. You've internalized a false equation. Longevity equals value. And the longer the friendship has been quietly toxic, the harder it is to recognize the true non-monetary cost: your sense of self, your peace, your capacity to show up for the people who actually nourish you. The key to stopping the drain is understanding that this toxicity is often not born from malice. It's born from a fundamental energetic mismatch where your light is required to constantly shrink. It's the friend who, when you leave the conversation, leaves you feeling heavy, anxious, or fundamentally less you. The silence in these friendships is deafening because it's the sound of your inner voice screaming for protection, and you are constantly turning that volume down to maintain the myth of the status quo. So, if the cost of maintaining the past is the peace of your present, how do you finally unplug that drain? The first step is to stop generalizing the pain and start diagnosing the problem, because the most insidious leaks are the ones we mislabel. They come disguised as neediness, as close bonding, or even as support. You need a sharper lens. The question is no longer, are my friends good people? The profound question we must ask ourselves is, when I interact with them, is my battery charging, or is it perpetually stuck in the red? Stay with me, because in the next part, we are going to look under the hood and expose the 3 specific personality-driven friendship archetypes that are relentlessly draining your core energy, so you can finally know exactly what you are fighting. Now that we've identified the universal problem, the slow, invisible energy drain. It's time to get specific. If we are going to fix the friendship battery, we have to look under the hood and diagnose exactly where the power is leaking. Not all drains look alike, and understanding the specific archetype is the only way to build the right internal defense. Modern psychology gives us the perfect lens to see these hidden dynamics, because these archetypes often prey on our own subconscious needs, whether it is our need to rescue, to lead, or to simply be liked. Let's break down the 3 most common toxic friendship archetypes that are subtly robbing your emotional charge. First, meet the spotlight stealer, whom we can also call the perpetual pivot. This friend's primary defense mechanism is to short-circuit the entire battery system, and they do it through a constant redirection of focus. You start a conversation sharing a success, you got a promotion, you hit a personal goal, or you're finally feeling good, and within 2 sentences, the entire narrative has pivoted. Your achievement becomes a launchpad for their story, or your vulnerability is immediately overshadowed by their bigger, more tragic, or more exciting event. The psychological hook here is that they don't just want attention, they need it as fuel, and they are incapable of being a secure, safe container for your emotional reality. When you leave a conversation with the spotlight stealer, you haven't felt heard. You've just acted as an audience for a one-person show. The drain is subtle. Your energy is expended in the attempt to redirect the focus back to yourself, which never works, and you leave feeling invisible. Next, we encounter the chilling archetype of the Undercover Underminer, also known as the Diminisher. This friend is the most corrosive to your battery because they quietly eat away at the terminals, making it impossible to hold a charge. Their toxicity is delivered via the backhanded compliment. That statement that sounds like support, but is fundamentally critical. That new job is great for you. It's good. You finally found something stable, you know, because you used to be so scattered. Or when you share a victory. Wow, that's amazing. I was just telling my partner how surprised I was. You pulled that off. Their motive isn't just insecurity. It often stems from a deep-seated shadow competition. They need you to succeed, but only up to the point where your success doesn't threaten their perceived position in the relationship hierarchy. When you feel that sudden pang of doubt or a deflation of pride after talking to them, you're feeling the corroding effect of the underminer. The drain here is constant doubt. They force you to spend your internal energy defending your worth instead of simply experiencing it. Finally, we have the most overt drain, the emergency magnet, or the perpetual fire drill. This friend keeps your battery on a perpetual high-draw cycle. Their life is an endless, dramatic series of crises, and their stability hinges on your immediate, reactive involvement. The psychological trap is that they activate your rescue attachment style. You feel valuable because they need you, creating a toxic, codependent loop. The problem is not that they have problems, we all do. The problem is their inability or unwillingness to mobilize their own resources, instead relying on you to be their constant, unpaid emotional first responder. You spend your weekends worrying about their debt, their partner drama, or their job loss, leaving you with no reserve energy to tackle your own life's challenges. The drain is constant, high stakes, reactive stress. The truth is, all 3 of these archetypes, in their own unique way, force you to compromise your well-being. They make you responsible for their focus, their insecurity, or their drama. Now that you can name them, you can stop just reacting to the drain and start building an internal defense. Because if you don't take a stand and create a buffer, you will forever be on an empty charge, living a life that is fundamentally reactive instead of intentional. The diagnosis is step one. The next is to find the ancient, time-tested tools to build your shield and take your power back. So, we've named the demons, we've diagnosed the draining archetypes, the spotlight stealer, the undercover underminer, and the emergency magnet. But here is the profound pivot we must make. The diagnosis, while critical, is an external action. The true, lasting defense against a draining friendship doesn't start with what you say to them. It starts with what you allow yourself to feel and keep within your own spirit. This is where we stop playing defense and start installing the healthy boundary surge protector, a protective wiring harness built not from modern advice, but from ancient, time-tested wisdom. The key to preventing the battery drain is to become an expert in the dichotomy of control. This is a central teaching of Stoicism, championed by thinkers like Epictetus. Simply put, it states there are things we control: our thoughts, our judgments, our responses, and things we do not control. Everything external, including the actions of our friend. The toxic friend, in every archetype, attempts to trick you into believing you must control their reaction, their mood, or their emergency. And that is the source of the drain. The moment you accept the responsibility for another adult's emotional state, you have unplugged your own battery and handed them the cord. The Stoic master tells us, when the spotlight stealer attempts a pivot, or the undercover underminer offers a critique, the event itself is neutral. Your only and sacred point of control is your response, your decision not to engage, not to defend, and not to let their external chaos infect your inner state. Now, let's deepen this concept with a vital piece of Eastern philosophy, the concept of Dharma. In this context, let's define Dharma as your sacred duty to your own well-being. Your boundary is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-dharma. It is a spiritual, psychological, and emotional necessity. When a draining friend attempts to breach your boundary, they are tempting you to violate your own duty to yourself. Every time you say yes to their constant crisis, when your entire being is screaming, no, you are violating your own Dharma. This insight shifts the conversation from how do I get them to stop to how do I become an unbreakable keeper of my own peace. And finally, we apply the mirror principle. This is a powerful mindfulness technique. Before you blame the friend, ask, what subconscious need of mine is this toxic dynamic serving? Are you secretly addicted to rescuing the emergency magnet? Do you seek external validation that forces you into competition, the undercover underminer? Or do you have an unaddressed fear of being alone, the spotlight stealer? Often, the toxic relationship is merely a reflection, a mirror of a deficiency or a dependency within ourselves. When you address that inner dependency, the external dynamic loses its grip because you no longer need the mirror. You break the codependent attachment style, by realizing you no longer need to be the hero, the validator, or the audience. The great liberation is realizing you are not responsible for their peace. You are only responsible for yours. Your inner sanctum is a sacred space, and you are the gatekeeper. The challenge now is moving from this internal philosophical defense to the practical real-world action of implementing boundaries. Because wisdom without application is just intellectual entertainment. It's time to stop the leak and start the repair. We've established the internal defense or Dharma, our dichotomy of control, the philosophical foundation of our peace. The hardest part of this journey is moving from understanding the drain to actively unplugging it, because the fear of the friendship breakup, the social taboo of consciously ending a long-term platonic bond, often paralyzes us. We have to be clear. The goal here is not confrontation. It is conscious distance. This is the practical wiring diagram for your healthy boundary surge protector. The path to conscious distance is not one dramatic cut. It is a three-step process of intentional recalibration. The first step is de-escalate. This is the silent, non-dramatic, and most effective way to begin the transition. If your friend is the emergency magnet, you reduce the frequency of your contact. If it was daily, make it weekly. If it was weekly, make it bi-weekly. Crucially, you also reduce the emotional investment in the conversation. When the spotlight stealer pivots, you don't chase the story. You offer a brief, non-committal acknowledgement and quickly transition back to a general, lower stakes topic. You are essentially reducing the number of charging sessions on your friendship battery. This gradual cooling off period allows the dynamic to shift without the emotional explosion that a sudden cut would cause, giving both parties space to adjust to the new, lowered expectations. The second step is define. This is where you set firm, non-negotiable boundaries, not by shouting them, but by silently enforcing them. This includes the time boundary and the topic boundary. When the emergency magnet calls, you preemptively state, "I have exactly 15 minutes before my next commitment. So tell me the most important thing." You've defined the limit, and you stick to it. If the Undercover Underminer starts to diminish your success, you calmly enforce the topic boundary by changing the subject. "I appreciate your perspective, but I actually want to move on to talking about your upcoming trip." You don't justify, you don't argue, and you don't apologize. The surge protector doesn't negotiate with the current. It simply blocks the overdraw. This is the ultimate act of intentional communication. Your actions speak louder than the words you are desperate to avoid saying. This leads us to the critical final step, the fork in the road, renovation versus demolition. At this point, after defining and de-escalating, you must choose. Renovation means the relationship survives, but it is fundamentally restructured. It shifts from an intimate, reciprocal friendship to a low-stakes acquaintance based purely on the new, strictly enforced boundaries. The old, toxic structure is gone, but a safe, minimal one remains. Demolition is the intentional fade out, the graceful, non-confrontational conclusion. It means you allow the relationship to naturally dissolve by ceasing to initiate contact and allowing the other person to fill the vacuum you intentionally created. This isn't ghosting, it is recognizing that the relationship has run its healthy course, and you are choosing to exit with integrity and self-compassion. Remember, the most compassionate thing you can do for both yourself and for them is to stop pretending the relationship is something it is not. By acting on this plan, you are not destroying a friendship. You are making a clear statement about your value, and you are creating the necessary vacuum for nourishing reciprocal friendships to finally enter your life. It is time to choose the blueprint for your well-being. We have navigated the internal philosophical work of Dharma and the practical steps of renovation versus demolition. But the real profound transformation happens in the space after you've unplugged the drain. For many of you, this will be the hardest part, the loneliness. Lull, that period of quiet where the absence of the draining drama leaves a vacuum. The toxic friend, for all their energy drain, was a constant source of activity, validation, or crisis. And the sudden silence can feel frighteningly empty. You might question your choice, wondering if you overreacted or feel the pang of guilt. I want you to welcome this quiet. This lull is not a punishment. It is the necessary stage for your internal friendship battery to finally begin recharging. This stage requires us to shift from a focus on leaving the toxic to a focus on building the nourishing. Psychologically, we need to transition from an avoidant attachment style, avoiding the drama, to a secure attachment style within ourselves and eventually with new friends. This means cultivating self-worth that is entirely independent of external validation. When you are no longer the rescuer for the emergency magnet or the audience for the spotlight stealer, who are you? The answer is, you are exactly who you were meant to be. This quiet allows you to finally align your energy with your authenticity. The healing process is the intentional rediscovery of your own voice, which was constantly being overridden by the noise of the toxic relationship. Now, let's talk about the intentional process of inviting new, healthy energy. A true, nourishing friend is not a person who simply agrees with you. They are a person who facilitates your growth and respects your sovereignty. The litmus test for a new friendship is simple. Does the interaction require you to expand, or does it require you to shrink? A healthy friend leaves you feeling seen, energized, and capable of tackling your own life. They don't leave you feeling anxious, depleted, or responsible for their happiness. You must now vet your environment with the same rigor you would use for a romantic partner, because your emotional ecosystem is that important. This is the ultimate loop. We started by asking, why do we tolerate behavior in our friends that we would never accept from a romantic partner? The answer lies in the standard of care we hold for ourselves. We accept less from friends because we've been subtly convinced that friendship is something you endure, not something you thrive within. But when you apply the dichotomy of control and embody your Dharma, when you build the surge protector, you fundamentally raise your personal standard. You realize that authentic connection is not built on shared history or shared trauma. It is built on reciprocal sovereignty, a mutual respect for each other's independent well-being. Your relationships are not meant to be a constant drain on your life force. They are meant to be a source of shared energy and elevation. The highest reward for the courage you've shown in unplugging that toxic friendship is not just a quiet life, but a full life. A life where your emotional battery is consistently charged by people who genuinely celebrate your light, not people who need it to dim theirs. When you prioritize your peace, your standard of care for a friend becomes identical to your standard for a partner. True friendship is not longevity, it is reciprocal sovereignty. Go and build your circle of sovereignty. The final and most crucial step in this journey is not about who you've let go of, but who you are becoming in the absence of that drain. We've navigated the practical exit through renovation or demolition, and we've embraced the quiet of the loneliness lull as a necessary period of self-recharge. Now, we arrive at the profound stage of integration, the intentional creation of an emotional ecosystem that does not just tolerate your peace, but actively contributes to it. This is where we secure the charging port and ensure that every new connection adds power to your friendship battery. The work of healing from a toxic friendship requires a deliberate psychological rewiring. For so long, you were operating from a place of reactive stress, always bracing yourself for the next crisis, from the emergency magnet, or preparing to defend yourself from the undercover underminer. The goal now is to establish secure attachment, not only with others, but primarily with yourself. A secure relationship with self means your self-worth is no longer a variable dependent on whether a friend validates you or needs you. You recognize that your inherent value is non-negotiable, and this internal security is the strongest shield against any future emotional drain. You move from seeking external validation to simply existing in your own authenticity. This shift in focus allows you to finally discern the difference between a codependent friendship, which is built on mutual lack, and a sovereign, reciprocal friendship, which is built on mutual overflow. You can't pour from an empty cup, and a true friend is someone who recognizes and respects the level of your liquid. When you are looking to invite new energy or redefine old relationships, apply the expansion test. When you think about spending time with this person, does your spirit expand in anticipation, or does it contract in preparation? The right people are not a challenge to endure. They are a catalyst for your growth. They are the ones who reflect your highest self back to you, even in your moments of doubt, without needing you to dim your light for their comfort. This entire framework, from the sunk cost fallacy to the dichotomy of control, has been about reclaiming your personal power. The deepest toxicity in friendship is not what they say to you, but the slow, corrosive effect it has on your belief in yourself. When you finally choose your own peace, you are engaging in the highest act of self-care. You are demonstrating to the universe that your well-being is not up for negotiation. So, let's come full circle. We started by asking why we tolerate behavior in our friends that we would never accept from a romantic partner. The answer is not that we value friends less. The answer is that our personal standard of care was unconscious. When you identify the drain, install the surge protector, and implement the action plan, you become conscious. You realize that your standard for a healthy friend must be identical to your standard for a healthy partner, a relationship based on mutual respect, honesty, and shared growth. Your true circle should be an ecosystem of sovereignty. You are not meant to save anyone, and no one is meant to save you. You are meant to walk side by side, two whole, fully charged batteries. Go and build your kingdom of peace.